My name's Andrew Wooten. I originally grew up in Russia and Ukraine, but went to college in Singapore at a program called Yale and US College, which was a program organized by Yale University and the National University of Singapore. I studied math and computer science and economics at Yale and US. I'm currently studying in the GSB, so I'm an MBA 2. I applied to Stanford through deferred admission, or the 2+2 program, and I've been a student here for a little bit over a year. What courses and majors are most appealing to an admissions committee? So there's really no formula there's no secret major that's gonna substantially boost your chances or reduce your chances, because the admissions dean is trying to put together a diverse class. So they want students who've studied economics, they want students with technical backgrounds, they want students with literature backgrounds or the humanities. And I've really seen a really diverse group of people here at Stanford. So some kind of, general advice is you want to stand out and be authentic. So if you think that there's kind of a templated person that gets into the GSB, it's almost the opposite of that. There's a lot of consultants out there, there's a lot of investment bankers, but the ones who get to come to Stanford are those that have something unique about them, a story or an ambition or dream that makes them stand out. While of course, looking at the class, some of the most common backgrounds are private equity or consulting at one of the big consulting firms. There are also a couple product managers, though I would say that's kind of less common. I think whatever career you go into, it's more the attributes that Stanford's gonna look for, what kind of leadership have you demonstrated, and what kind of impact have you had, and what matters to you. So I would focus on that more than on a specific career trajectory. Though if you're looking for specific advice, I'd say you probably can't go wrong with consulting or finance if you want a pretty straight and narrow path to a business school. Why did you ultimately decide on Stanford GSB? How did it stand out against the other top MBA programs? I chose Stanford for a couple reasons. One is that Stanford is famous for entrepreneurship, being in the heart of Silicon Valley and amazing companies like Google being founded from campus. So I was really excited about the entrepreneurial aspect. I also thought the campus was gorgeous, and Northern California weather is hard to beat. On top of that, I really like Stanford's culture. It's a very open-minded, friendly, inclusive, and very positive, optimistic culture. So I kind of had a rough sense of that before applying, but I think that's really been reinforced having spent more than a year on campus. But overall, I learned about the cultures and how different business schools are unique from a Crimson advisor, David Buisson, and he was the one who really inspired me to put Stanford first as I thought about my business school applications. What is your favorite part about Stanford GSB? This one's really easy. It's definitely the people. The classmates in my class are some of the most fun, exciting, cool, and caring people I've ever interacted with. I feel really fulfilled socially. There's events going on every day, and it's just an incredibly positive and happy experience to make friends and build connections. So hands down, my favorite thing about the program is the people that you go through it with. What is the balance between academic life, professional pursuits, and social life? I'd say every student gets to decide this for themselves. I have a couple friends who maybe do an hour or two of homework a week and just make that work, spend most of their time building social connections, making friends. I have friends that are working on startups or businesses and really accelerating their professional ambitions. Then I have a couple friends who are really enjoying the classes and taking their homework and academics really seriously and spending less time on other things. So I think it really depends on a person's goals. Some people are coming into business school already knowing where they're going after, so they don't have to spend as much time on job applications, while others are thinking about how to make sure they can stay in the US and have that work visa secured, so they're really prioritizing job applications. I'd say for me it's a pretty even split. I really enjoy the classes. I think the academics are super interesting. So I spend, I do all the homework that's assigned, probably takes a couple hours a day. But then I also love the social events and, make sure to work closely with Crimson every day too. So it's a mix, but I've managed to make the balance work. So what are 2 suggestions you would give to a student looking to land a top MBA admission? I would say one is make sure you have your academics in order, get good grades in college, do well on the GMAT or GRE. That's not going to be the deciding factor, but it is kind of table stakes. So make sure that you put the effort in and do well academically. And the second piece of advice is really take the time to write the essay. Do the hard work of exploring and self-reflecting. Don't just write a generic essay about an industry. Really think about what makes you unique, what matters most to you and why, and be authentic in answering that. I think students who try to give a correct response to that question don't realize how easily that correct response can get caught in lots of similar correct responses. The best way to tell a compelling story is to tell one that only you would be able to tell. So one piece of advice is when you're reading your what matters most to you and why essay, just use the basic test of, if I gave this to a friend that knows me and they read this essay, would they be able to tell that it's about me? Or could it just be a generic essay from someone in my industry or someone from my major? So make sure that your essay feels like only you could have written it. That's how kind of authentically it needs to represent what truly matters to you and makes you special. What are the top 3 things that prospective MBA students overlook when applying to business school? I think one is the location and weather matters. Living in 2 years in Boston or New York or Palo Alto is going to be a fundamentally different experience. So if you really want to be in a city, it's a long drive to San Francisco. If you really want to be in good weather, Dartmouth is going to hit you pretty cold in December. So just make sure that you think about the environment the business school is set in. I think that's pretty important. The second thing that I think is pretty often overlooked is the culture. The cultures at business schools are different. What students there are hoping to accomplish and what they're like can vary. And whether you have an amazing business school experience or just an average one is going to depend a lot on whether you vibe and have good relationships with your class. So I think that's pretty important. And the third thing is it's important to just give yourself space to explore. I think people who come into business school with very specific goals and aims and have a lot of pressure on their expectations are more likely to be disappointed. It's better if you just come into the experience wanting to learn, wanting to get the most you can out of it, building friendships, building connections, and just let both your goals and kind of vision for your life organically evolve as you learn more about the world and about yourself. Hardest course you've taken in business school? So I don't think there were really difficult courses per se. I think maybe there were 2 courses that had challenging problem sets. This is advanced microeconomics and advanced optimization and simulation modeling. Those are both optional courses, so you don't have to take the advanced level of those. But I found them really challenging, and the math was intellectually stimulating. But I think most Stanford GSB courses you're gonna get out of it what you put into it. So you can probably come to most classes barely prepared. You'll just get a lot less out of it. You won't fail. There's usually no tests, but to really have a great experience in a Stanford GSB course, it's worth really diving into the case, reflecting on it, putting yourself in the case protagonist's shoes, and that's what's gonna enable you to walk out of that classroom with some really deep insight. Some courses are more work, some are less work, but almost every course ends up being what you put into it, and is pretty flexible on how much effort you want to put into the course. But I would recommend choosing courses that are interesting to you and then diving all in, because that's how you'll really get a lot out of the program.